Hello YouTube, my name is Greed Nation, and let's start off by talking about something that happened 30 years from this year. Year was 1991. A certain sequel film came out that year that emphasized that sequels could be good. Now, that's not me saying that there weren't any good sequel films before 1991, but this one was unique, let's say. The film I'm talking about is, of course, Terminator 2: Judgment Day. It really has earned its place in cinema history as being not just one of the best films of all time, but also one of the best sequels of all time. And so much so that it's basically made every other sequel that's come after it be like completely destroyed or barely successful. Which only applies to Terminator 3, which, yeah, quite the history. Anyways, we all know about the about T3 and Salvation, and of course the film Genesis that... Actually, I don't even know why Genesis was even made in the first place. Honestly, does anybody even remember? I don't know. Tell me in the comment section below. But the last film, Dark Fate, Terminator Dark Fate, and now this kind of signifies that if somebody like James Cameron can't even bring the Terminator franchise back to its former glory, immediately after the success of Judgment Day, and I don't know what will. But that's not to say that I can't try. This will be, of course, my take on if I was part of the writing crew of Terminator Dark Fate, or at least maybe one of the final screenplay writers, or maybe even the person that they go to take the story to, have them go over it and go over it bit by bit to see what works, what doesn't, and blah, 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 blah. That would be, let's just put me in that sort of position. And let's see what we make. Now, just to be clear, I'm not going to disregard the original Dark Fate altogether. I'm actually going to take what Dark Fate actually did and go through it bit by bit, taking it apart and explaining what works, what doesn't, what could have worked but failed tremendously, and giving it a little bit of a polish so that it could actually work. Okay, we're gonna... Now, the first part, of course, we all know it opens up with the videos of Sarah Connor's psychological study stuff from that one place she was locked up in T2. That can actually stay the same because I feel like that kind of gives it a bit of gives a bit of a... It's kind of like how T2 ended up opening, with the kind of narration giving a sort of a backstory on what exactly led up to this moment, though maybe a little more... I don't know, it just works, okay? Anyway. And then, of course, we get a bit of a flash bit from what the future war would have been had the events of T2 not exactly play out as it was, if they didn't stop Skynet or anything like that. Then we get to the part where Sarah and John are in Mexico. Now, here's the thing. This is where it drastically changes. A lot. Now, it can be kind of similar, except from perspective. Instead of it being told from like this first-person perspective of the audience, while being told from a third-person perspective from Sarah Connor, we can get kind of that third-person perspective while focusing on the film from, say, Sarah's position, and instead of actually seeing a certain somebody. For the record, if none of you have actually, I should probably point out that if none of you have actually seen Dark Fate, you should probably watch this first before continuing to watch this video, because let's just say there's a bunch of spoilers. Possibly. So, recommendation. But, I mean, if you're still watching this, then you probably also seen Dark Fate, or you probably don't give a care about Dark Fate. So you don't care to be spoiled. So, instead of this certain person walking past Sarah Connor and going straight for John Connor, instead the person goes behind Sarah Connor, whacks her in the back of the head, and then we see from her perspective that she falls to the ground, starts passing out. We hear shots, and then it goes forward by 22 years to 2020. Now, for the record, let me just clarify that's how I would have done it. Okay, that's how I would have done it if I was writing this thing. Now, of course, again, we're still in Mexico, and of course, Danny is still a character in this thing, and so is Grace. But I would actually do a little bit of a character change for at least Grace. Danny, that would probably take an entire video all on its own, so let's just keep it simple for now. So with Grace, okay, the way she comes in, with the time portal thing and whatnot, falling down till she, it's kind of like a homage to how Kyle Reese ended up getting into the past from the future. Kind of a similar way, a bit high in the air and then falling to the ground. I felt like that was a bit of a homage sort of thing, but then again, when the Rev 9 comes in, they do the exact same thing, so... I don't know. I guess they felt like it needed to be done twice in order to make the homage quite clear. And anyway, she's still enhanced with the robotic genetic stuff and whatnot, whatever that was. I don't think it was actually fully explained, or at least not in the way where it was clear enough to make science not roll its eyes at it. Anyways, confrontation with the cops. I don't know what Terminator character hasn't had an encounter with the cops in any of these films. I mean, aside from Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese being captured by the police and the Terminator, confrontation with the police at the Skynet Research Center and T2, getting shot at by police at the cemetery in Terminator 3, Terminator Salvation took place in the future, so I don't think there was actually police forces there. Terminator Genesis. Kirby's going immediately back to the future, getting captured by police immediately after he steals his clothes. Hospital, though probably only for like 2 minutes, and they were already in cuffs, so Golden Gate Bridge, police station. And now they probably had one or too many confrontations with the police in that film, so let's just reduce it down to one in this. Let's at least have one, okay? Let's at least have one. Grace takes care of them, hopefully not even trying to kill them. And instead of immediately going to the first person who's still alive and telling them to give her their clothes, and let's just do it. Hey, if we're just ripping off Kyle Reese, then let's keep going. Let's go sneaking into a store and actually stealing clothes like Kyle Reese did in the first Terminator film. Let's just do that, because I think it would make a lot more sense than her actually getting them off of somebody. But then again, Kyle Reese did do that as well, so no, let's keep it that way. She doesn't steal anybody's clothes, she steals them at the store. That's it. Okay, Rev 9 comes in. His whole entire intro stays the same. Gets Danny's father there, kills him, disguises at him to get to Danny, and then of course Grace appears and protects her, gets Danny and her brother Miguel. I think that's what his name was. I can't exactly remember, but Miguel is like a few Mexican names that I actually know, so let's just keep it like that. Let's see. They have that car chase, like in the film. And then, of course, they crash. But instead of letting Miguel die, like he did in the film, instead, we'll actually let him live because because I mean, it's kind of tired death, and it doesn't really add anything to the film except for emotional stress. But then again, we already got them emotional stress for Danny because her father is dead, so let's just keep the casualty to 1 for her family, at least for now. Miguel survives, and because of that, and then, of course, Sarah Connor comes in and does her thing, says, I'll be back, and then it takes care of the Rev 9, but of course we know the Rev 9 isn't exactly defeated as of yet. End up in the motel. Sarah Connor explains who she is, what her own importance is to the story. He mentions that John is supposed to be the future leader of the human resistance against Skynet. And this is where we learn about what happened that day. After Sarah ends up waking up, she realizes John is missing. Has no idea where he is or what happened to him. Assumed that some random people were just being a bunch of nimrods and bullies as well. And they decided to, pick on a little kid, I guess. I don't know. I'm still trying to work that one out. Grace explains that she's from the future. It's part of the human resistance from the year 2042. And despite what Sarah and John did, it still ends up being a future born, blah, 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 about it. But according to her, John is not the leader of the human resistance, but actually some secret figure calling him or herself Hightower. I almost said Skynet. Why? No, Skynet is the bad guy. Okay. The character's name, the mysterious leader of the resistance, is called Hightower. And she also explains that Danny is one of the generals of the future resistance, second only to Hightower, and acts more of a mediator between Hightower and the rest of the resistance. And according to her, Miguel was actually supposed to die in a car accident. That particular incident on the bridge, that was supposed to be the result. Kill him due to just a typical car accident. And now because he survived, she ends up going through the profiles of the human resistance and learns that Miguel is the high-ranking officer of a certain segment of the resistance in Central America in the future war. So now she has to protect both Danny and Miguel. And Sarah mentions that in the years after John's disappearance, she has been going around taking care of these Terminators that have been appearing all over the map. And she's been getting the coordinates of such encounters from someone sending her text messages, like in the original film. Danny has coordinates to this certain place. However, the coordinates are not in Texas like in Dark Fate, but actually coordinates that Sarah finds out leads to the Himalayas. So they decide we're going to need an airplane. They go to an airport, and this is where they have their next encounter with the Rev 9. Not the border patrol, place, and because seriously, I think we all know exactly what the whole purpose of that was. Politically speaking, Anyways, airport security holds back the Rev 9 long enough for Sarah, Grace, Danny, and Miguel to get out of there on an airplane, get to the Himalayas. Of course, the Rev 9 being the Rev 9 eventually finds a way to get there as well, possibly with an airplane, because I don't think he would have because I don't doubt he would have swam all the way there. Anyway, get to the Himalayas. They come to this sort of hut in the middle of the Himalayas, open the door, and instead of seeing the T-800, you just see some guy who would be like in his early to mid-30s, and he looks at Sarah and says, "Mom." And lo and behold, John Connor is still alive. John explains that back in 98, when the one random guy knocked out Sarah, took him and him to the Himalayas, where he reveals himself to be a reprogrammed T-1000. Yeah, we're doing this. It's kind of an interesting theme, I think. In the first Terminator film, the T-800 was the bad guy. Then in T2, the T-1000 was the bad guy, and the T-800 was the reprogrammed good guy. And so I figured, well, in the third film, what else they could do other than take the T-1000 and have it be reprogrammed and be the sort of good guy in this film. Of course, you would need somebody other than Robert Patrick to portray the T-1000, because, I mean, guy is old. He's basically said, I was told that the reason why he didn't play the T-1000 in Genesis was because he was old, couldn't run anymore, and actually had a bad hip, which was why they only gave him a brief cameo in that film, as just some random guy sitting in a chair in the hospital. I sure hope he was well paid to do that cameo. Anyway, it's revealed that the reprogrammed T-1000 wasn't the only Terminator that was sent back. There was also another Terminator, a T-900, that was not built by Skynet and reprogrammed by the human resistance, but rather a Terminator that was built by the human resistance. And of course, it's not going to be portrayed. He wouldn't be portrayed by Arnold Schwarzenegger. He would be portrayed by somebody else completely different, probably a little bit younger. And it's kind of more of a sort of an in-between sort of segment between a T-800 and a T-1000, kind of a halfway point. It doesn't have liquid metal, but it could be more, show more of an emotional edge than the stale sound of the T-800. Anyway, it's revealed that John Connor is actually the future human resistance leader, Hightower, and he was told by the Terminators that Skynet or Legion. Though to be honest, if it's called Legion, I guess we could also include a joke in which Sarah Connor says, well, just sounds like Skynet 2.0 or something like that. Something like that, I guess. Anyway, they make plans to get the Rev 9, take care of the Rev 9, and I don't know, it could be kind of something similar to what they did in the in Dark Fate, though maybe a little bit more of a risk factor, kind of like what the first two films had. Because let's be honest, these characters in Dark Fate, they tempt fate a little too much. Okay, they treat it as if it's just some random thing, like everybody goes through it. I mean, seriously, at least have some of them be a little concerned that they might actually die or get killed. Anyway, of course, since, and of course, Grace dies the way she did in the film, and of course, the Rev 9's liquid skin eventually gets destroyed, so the skeletal portion, the exoskeletal skeleton is left. And of course, they take Grace's power device from her chest and puts it into the Rev 9. And this is where it changes a little bit. I think it gives more of an emotional edge for the audience. And that is Sarah Connor sacrifices herself in order to kill the Rev 9. And to protect her son, John, like she is supposed to. I feel like it's a more fitting fate for Sarah Connor than just having a die off screen like in T3 or just trying it halfway through but not getting any payoff like what they did with the Sarah Connor Chronicles or with whatever they were going with Genesis or the original Dark Fate. It's okay, I don't have COVID. And there's one thing, and at the end of it all, Danny ends up asking one thing from John, and that is, and the question is, if they ended up going back, if in the events of T2, if they destroyed the elements that required the future war against the machines did not happen, then how is it still going to happen, just at a different date? And I think this is one thing that nobody has ever taken into account. So the one thing that could actually lead the franchise to be able to do another sequel. And that is the arm of the T-800. Now, I'm not talking about the arm that they threw into the molten lead at the end of the film. No. I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about the one that was cut off from the good guy T-800 when his arm got caught up in the gears and it rips it off. I don't think anybody has taken into account that actually happened. And I mean, as far as we know, they didn't do anything with that arm. So I mean, who cares if they destroyed all the chips? I mean, there's still a metal arm out there that that scientists can use. I mean, seriously, has nobody taken that into account? Anyway, it's revealed that they have to find the arm, destroy it, and then afterwards, going to have to destroy the other Terminators as well by the time it's over. And of course, John has to stay where he is because if he goes out there and tries to find it along with the others, let's just say the whole purpose of his persona as Hightower is going to be completely pointless, and Legion or Skynet or whatever you want to call it will know who Hightower is and send a Terminator back into the past and start up the whole events of, and try to rewrite the whole events of. Oh wow, I think I actually found a way to connect Genesis to this whole thing. Isn't that a good idea? Nah, he couldn't. It couldn't possibly lead to that. Could it? No, it couldn't. Or could it? No. Or could it? Okay, I'm done.